All right, let's just get right into it. You're doing everything you're supposed to. You're eating clean, you're hitting the gym, you're in that calorie deficit. But then you step on the scale and the number is going the wrong way. It is one of the most maddening things in fitness, and today we're going to solve that mystery.
I mean, who hasn't had this exact thought, right? It just derails so many people. You've been so disciplined, you feel better, you feel like you're making progress, and then the scale just kind of laughs in your face. It feels like a total betrayal from your own body.
In a way, yeah, it kind of is. Your body has this whole arsenal of tricks that can make real, actual fat loss completely invisible on the scale. But here's the thing. Once you understand the game it's playing, you can finally see right through the illusion.
And this, right here, is the most important thing to get. We think of the scale as some kind of fatometer, but it's not. It's a total body massometer. It's weighing absolutely everything: your muscle, all the water you're holding, the food in your gut, and yeah, of course, fat. So let's break down what's really going on in there. So first things first, we've got to talk about the math. Because even before we get into all the cool biology stuff, there's a really good chance that the numbers you think you're working with, well, they aren't the real numbers at all. Just let this number sink in for a second. 30%. Study after study shows that's how much people, on average, underestimate what they eat every day. And look, that's not just a little rounding error. That is a huge gap. You might think you're in a nice 500-calorie deficit, but in reality, you could be way closer to just maintaining your weight or even gaining and not even know it. And this slide just shows you exactly how it happens. It's almost never the big things. It's all the little stuff. It's the oil you use to cook the chicken that you forgot to log. It's that extra tablespoon of peanut butter that, let's be honest, was probably more like 3. These little invisible calories add up so fast and can easily turn what you thought was a 1,700-calorie day into a 2,100-calorie day, completely wiping out that deficit you worked so hard for. And the trap just gets deeper when you look at the other side of the equation, calories out. Your fitness tracker is so motivating, right? It says you burned 500 calories. Awesome. But lab tests show the reality is often less than half of that. So you actually burn 200, you think it was 500, and you decide to eat back those extra calories, completely undoing all your hard work. Okay, but let's say your math is absolutely perfect. I mean, you're tracking every single gram, you're weighing every portion. The scale can still mess with your head. So now we get into the really fascinating part, your body's own hidden variables. Okay, so the first and biggest culprit here is something called glycogen. Now, don't get bogged down by the sciencey term. All you need to do is think of it like a biological sponge that lives inside your muscles and your liver, just waiting to soak things up. Now, here's why that sponge analogy is so perfect. For every single gram of glycogen, which comes from carbs, that your body stores, it grabs and holds on to 3 to 4 grams of water right along with it. Let me say that again. 1 gram of carbs can make you hold on to 4 grams of water. This means any changes in how many carbs you eat can cause these huge, fast shifts in your body weight that have absolutely nothing to do with gaining or losing fat. And glycogen is just one piece of this puzzle. Remember, that scale is weighing everything. That means the food that's still working its way through your system, any new muscle you might be building from your workouts, and a really big one we're about to talk about, water retention from stuff like salt and stress. Yeah, let's talk about stress. A crazy week at work, not getting enough sleep, even just the mental stress of being on a diet. All of that can raise a hormone called cortisol. And all you really need to know about cortisol is that it basically screams at your body, hey, hold on to water, don't let go. So even while you're successfully burning fat, your body can be holding on to several extra pounds of water, completely masking that progress on the scale.
And this brings us to something that a lot of people on a diet experience, the whoosh effect. It's when you go for days, maybe even weeks, and the scale doesn't budge. You're getting so frustrated. And then, one morning, you wake up, your stress levels have dropped, your body finally lets go of all that water, and whoosh, you're suddenly 3-4 pounds lighter. That wasn't you losing fat overnight. That was your body finally revealing the fat you had already lost days ago. So we've got the tricky math, and we've got all these biological variables. Now, let's put it all together and see how this stuff can create a totally confusing week on the scale. Okay, this is where it all clicks. Let's walk through a typical week. You worked hard, you stayed in your deficit, and you lost a ½ pound of fat. Awesome! That's minus 0.5. You also lifted weights, so you put on a little bit of muscle. Fantastic, but that adds 0.3 pounds to the scale. Then you had a stressful week at work, so your body holds on to a full pound of water from cortisol.
And to top it off, you had a salty, high-carb meal out with friends, which adds another 1.2 pounds of water and glycogen. So what's the final result? Look at that bottom line. You actually lost fat, but the scale is screaming a 2-pound gain.
And this right here is the aha moment. The scale is telling you a story of failure. It's making you want to just give up. But the reality, what was actually happening inside your body, was a story of success. You just couldn't see it because it was buried under all that water and a little bit of new muscle. So if the scale is such an unreliable narrator, then how in the world are you supposed to track your progress? Well, it's time to build a better toolkit. Here are your 4 new rules of the game. First, track honestly. That's how we fixed that math problem from the beginning. Second, watch the trend over weeks, not the daily number. Your weight is going to zigzag up and down, but what you want to see is a general downward slope over time. Third, do your best to manage stress and get enough sleep. And fourth, and this one might be the most important, you have to learn to trust the other signs of progress.
We're talking about non-scale victories. And honestly, they tell a much more accurate story. How are your clothes fitting? Are your jeans a little looser around the waist? When you look at your progress photos from last month, do you see a real difference? Are your waist and hip measurements going down? Do you just have more energy? Are you getting stronger in the gym? These are all undeniable signs that you're making progress, and the scale can't measure a single one of them.
So the next time you step on that scale and see a number you don't like, just take a breath. Don't panic. Remember that that number is just one tiny piece of data in a much bigger, much more complicated story. So you have to ask yourself, what's the bigger story that my body is telling me? Because I can almost guarantee you, if you're putting in the work consistently, it's a story of success.